This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today is the CEO of Hannan Metals, Mr. Michael Hudson. Mike, it's great to catch up with you. How are you, sir?
I'm very well here on a morning down under and late your afternoon. So thanks again for talking, Gerardo.
Absolutely. It's great to have you back on. We chatted a bit off air about how exciting the San Martin project is getting. You've always been very cautious to highlight that it was going to be very important to get on the ground and be able to demonstrate scale and continuity. And then, of course, we get into grade, which goes into margin. But the news that you had here yesterday, I think is I don't want to say game changer. I don't want to sound too hyperbolic, but it is very important news. So let me read the headline and I'll let you provide the context. Hannan soil sampling defines copper silver mineralization over 18 kilometers at Tabaloso's east. There's a line in the release that talks about how more than 1% of the bedrock outcrops. And I'll stop talking and let you provide the context. But phenomenal work, and congratulations as a biased shareholder. This was good to see.
Well, let's try not be too hyperbolic, but perhaps with my geological hat on, I can say this is a technical game changer. Absolutely, and let's not put it in commercial terms. Absolutely, but it is a very key release, and surprised us internally on the upside massively. Basically, in terms of when we started getting out on the ground here, over the last 2 or 3 months, we've done the initial prospecting, found the very high grade boulders, followed up and found high grade copper silver outcrops over kilometers, but little windows. We're seeing much less than 1% outcrop. This is jungle terrain. Jungle canopies with that drop lots of leaves, develop soil profiles that cover the rocks. So we don't see much of the rocks. So of course the next step was to start running these soil lines continuously over the areas where we'd found outcrop and extending beyond them. And the first thing we noticed was that the soils worked above the outcrop areas. So the method worked. Then we started extending those soil lines at a few hundred meters along strike, and we saw that the anomalies continued, and then kilometers along strike, and the anomalies continued in context, in the right geological positions that we'd interpreted and where we'd expected these anomalies. And then we started running some larger lines across the area, and this is the area where we've done all the environmental initial permitting for drilling. We call it the DIA area, or the EIA area, where we've commenced all that work. It's about 6 kilometers by 3 kilometers in area, and the initial signs we have now is that there's a snaking pancake that extends within that area alone. Remembering we've got over 100 kilometers of strike in our tenure, but in this area alone, there's 18 kilometers of this pancake layer that snakes around the country, defined by the soil sampling. So it's worked at the scale of tens to hundreds of meters and showing continuity, which is the first time we've seen in the system. And then it's working at multiple kilometer levels when we run these soil lines, and it's throwing up new anomalies where we didn't understand we had mineralization. So you can see that in the figure that we put out in that press release. There's new areas that we had no idea where mineralization was, no outcrop, and nothing to show that it could be there other than these soils. So a fantastic method, and we're running portable XRF with analytical check samples. So it means that our turnaround times are quick. We can make rapid decisions in the field and collect probably 2 to 3 times as much as we would by trying to lug samples in and out of these areas, horseback into the labs back to Lima. So we're doing, the method's working. It's very fast turnaround, and we've got very high productivity as well, which is very important in exploration.
There's multiple, obviously, with the land package being as big as it is, multiple areas of interest. It seems to me from the release that the Zona Sur section is one of particular note. And I don't know if that's just a function of that's where you've done most of the work or more of the work, but some of the results there, 2 meters at 4.9% copper and 62 grams per ton silver. And you note that more importantly, it doubles the strike length of the outcrop zone. Is the Zona Sur the most advanced area thus far as it relates to fieldwork?
At the moment, yes, but that can and probably will change. It's just where we happen to find the initial outcrops and where we started the soils and where we've been able to define it with a lot more detail at the moment. And it hangs up and probably would be the first area that we'd plan our drilling today. And that's over a 1.5 kilometre area, that Zona Sur alone. So yes, it is, but exploration's incremental, and we're gaining incremental information elsewhere that looks just as good as Zona Sur with only 10% of the information. So let's see how the whole thing develops. But of course, this has to form at scale, which we know we've got copper over 100 kilometres. Now we know we've got copper within that shows continuity at that sort of level. And as you said, I've always said the challenge in exploration will be to find continuity at the drill scale. This is one step much closer to show that this stratigraphic level is continuously mineralized, and then of course the next stage is to refine that with drills and multiple drill holes on sections and stepping out and finding a grade that hangs together. But it's looking very, very encouraging, and certainly we've added significant value to this point. Remembering drills are probably another 8 to 10 months away.
The soil sampling results are from the San Martin portion of, or I should say the JOGMEC JV portion of the San Martin project, which of course is a part of the overall land package. You, of course, being a top 10 landholder in Peru. Can you speak to the remaining portion of the property package? Because again, it's massive, right? It's basin scale. It's again, I don't think people quite understand or appreciate the scale of what you've been able to put together there.
Hannan is opening up new areas in some of the most productive metalliferous areas in the world, I suppose. We're going into these areas that are not easy. The jungle's not easy to explore. It's really tough exploration. Socially, people don't know a lot about exploration, so we've got extensive social work occurring at every point, explaining what we're doing and trying to demonstrate that we're credible and reliable partners to have in those areas with the local stakeholders. Now, the specific question was what we've just talked about was Tabalosas East is a very small part of the JOGMEC JV. JOGMEC are the Japanese government, essentially, who have an organisation that funds specific companies like Hannan to make new discoveries that the Japanese can eventually find new sources of metal for their industry. It's about 1/3 of our land holding in Peru is under that JV with JOGMEC, which is a $35 million US deal for them to earn 75% over time. The other 2/3 are held 100% by Hannan. We've got 4 geologists and a larger team exploring those areas by themselves. One part of that is a sediment-hosted copper area to the west of the JOGMEC joint venture that's in our own right, and you'll see some information come out about that. We've started exploring there and running stream sediment samples and prospecting work, and we like what we see there in the ground held in our own right. And then a few hundred kilometres south of the sediment-hosted areas, we've got a porphyry copper gold area that I implore listeners to go and have a look at our latest presentation. There's very little information there, and you have to be fairly technical, but the early stage evidence is that we're onto a number of copper gold porphyries over extensive areas, showing impressive early stage exploration from stream sediments to float to outcrop, at grades that are that have been identified at early stages of some of the more significant discoveries in the Andes. So early days, but an amazing portfolio in an amazing metalliferous country.
I got to believe that you're probably fielding multiple phone calls about the other 2/3 of the land package. Well said, Mike. Well said. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
It's probably gone longer on an evening for you, so let's wrap up there. But we're pretty excited, very much so.
As am I. And again, I'm speaking with you, which implies I'm biased or we wouldn't be having the conversation, but I am also a shareholder. And yes, this is one of the most exciting exploration stories, I think, in the entire space. Thank you for your time today, Mike.
Thanks, Gerardo.
All right. Chat soon.